why you need to understand the business of games. And so this is extremely important to everyone in here. Let me do a quick barometer. Who is in the industry right now, but not on the business side? Okay. How many of you are, don't worry, we're all like this, it's all good. How many of you are wanting to get into the industry and you're just trying to figure out the next steps for what you want to do? Welcome to my class. So the people that get into this industry because they love business and they can't wait till they open up a spreadsheet, and this is why they love video games, are very few. And truthfully, 30 years ago, I wasn't even one of them. Most people, and I'm assuming the majority of you in here, are on the coding side. You're on the design side, the art, the narrative side. You want to get into the industry. Eventually, you want to run your own studio, but this whole part of the world is kind of a giant big question mark, and that's okay. Part of the problem of the industry right now is we have wonderful programs across the world on how to build your coding skills, how to build art, how to do design. There are very few places where you can learn to do the business part of it. So today, we're going to go through the whys, the hows, that sort of stuff in an hour. If you want the slide deck afterwards, don't worry about keeping notes. I'll send it to you. Just email me. I'll send you a copy of it. Not a big deal. So, why do we need to understand this? Well, we'll get back to that in a second. So, real quick, I've been doing this for 25 years. I started in the industry as an evaluator and went to become an intern, and then when I graduated college, I was offered a job as an agent. So I had no business experience. I went to the University of North Carolina. I took one econ class. Pretty sure I got a D in it, and the only thing I remembered was supply goes up, demand goes down. That was it. I learned all of this stuff on the fly. For the last 12 years, I've been running a business consulting firm. We track thousands of developers, 600, 700 publishers around the world. What we do is understand what developers need, what they're good at, what publishers need, what they're good at, and we put all of those people together. And so, but I had to learn all of this on the fly. There was no, intro to business class. So why is this important? Right here. If you want this to be your full-time job, and you don't want to go work a job in the daytime and come home and work on your game at night, you need to understand how to make a real living out of this. And for that, you don't need an MBA, but you do need to understand the basics of what goes into the business side of the industry. So, what we're going to cover. One, why does it matter? Deals don't happen instantly. So, the average time it takes between the time you send your game to a publisher and a deal happens used to be 3 months. COVID happened. Everything slowed down. Not necessarily because communication got slowed down, it was exactly the opposite. All of a sudden, digital conferences started happening. Developers had much direct access to publishers. We have publishers, Raw Fury, for example. They see 1,500 games a year. It simply takes longer to get through this stuff. Now the average time from the time you submit your game to a publisher to the time that they sign the contract with you, assuming you get a publisher, is 4 months. So you have to plan this stuff out. It doesn't, like, you don't finish your beta and go, okay, we're going to be out of money in 6 weeks, so we need to find a publisher. I'll tell you what I tell everyone who calls me with that situation. Pick a god, doesn't matter which one, pray. They're all going to be just as effective as the other ones. Relationship building is key. This is something that doesn't happen overnight. This is something that happens over time. It happens through phone calls. It happens through Twitter exchanges. It happens through conferences. This is one of the epitomes of it doesn't matter what you know, it matters who you know in this industry. The one thing I would tell you, if you take nothing out of this conference, especially to all of you who are coming out of college and you want to get into the industry, you cannot burn a bridge in this industry because we all know each other. As big, as multi-billion-dollar as this industry is, There is nobody that we can't find, especially the people that have been doing this for 15, 20, 25 years, in 2 phone calls or 2 texts or something, because we do know it's a very tight, insular industry. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. But it takes time to build those relationships, and it's why it's important to network. And if you're not comfortable going out and going to the conferences and just randomly talking to people, there's online ways to do this as well. There's plenty of opportunities. Find the opportunity and find the way of networking that you're comfortable with and work on it, because absolutely it is all about knowing the right people in the game industry. You need to be able to learn these trends and be able to pivot quickly. You know, so a friend of mine, Chris Zukowski, that does the How to Market a Game blog, which I 100% recommend you go check out Chris and all the content that he does. He watches these trends, and for like the last year and a half, you know, he analyzes all this data coming out of Steam, and he's like, 4X games are the ones that everybody is after. Well, then, you know, when someone sees that, they're like, oh, okay, so 4X games are selling really well on Steam. We need to make a 4X game. Well, a 4X game is going to take you 2-3 years sometimes to build, and at that point, everybody's going to be playing looter, shooter, frogger, whatever genre. It's not going to matter. You're going to be completely out of the loop at that point. So if you're not able to understand what's going on in the industry and have, I'm not even going to tell you foresight, because you can have just as much foresight as anyone else does, and this stuff is going to change, but you need to be able to understand before you go in to start making that game, okay, what is the marketability for my project? Is someone going to buy this if I make it? And then, you know, right on with that, staying relevant, you know, because if you, one of the best things about the complete conversion to digital has been going on since, you know, iTunes and Steam. And keep in mind, I am ancient by industry standards. When I started doing this, everything was in a box, and there was absolutely no such thing as a mobile phone. But ever since Steam and iTunes have come along, it has given a rebirth to genres that we long thought were dead. All space simulations, you know, the whole X series and whatever the big multi-trillion-dollar farce is at this point. A lot of these you know, genres have come back because there's a new market for it. You need to be able to understand what's going on there, look beyond just the numbers, and stay relevant to make sure that you're going to create something that is actually going to be sellable both to a publisher and to the consumers. And we'll get into the whole do you need a publisher question. So, all right, let me check time here. All right. These are what we're going to go over today. These are the fundamental principles of business in the game industry. Marketing, messaging, and PR, prospecting, writing proposals, negotiating contracts, and we could do a whole other two-hour session on negotiating contracts, but we'll get there. Managing projects, which yes, that is a production project management issue, but it's also an issue you need to be acutely aware of when you're running the business side of this. Getting paid, kind of important, and then endorsements at the end, because as you will see from that slide, nobody comes back for crappy work. You know, it has to be good. So, we're talking prospecting. We're talking about, you know, going out and finding a publisher, for example. And so, the real quick answer on the do you need a publisher question is if you have never been a part of a game being published, if you've never self-published a game, if you've never been in the process at all, yes, because you don't know what you don't know. Can you self-publish your game? Absolutely. $500 and a Steam key, you're good to go. You can self-publish. Will somebody find your game and actually buy it? Probably not. I get an email every Monday morning of every game that is launched on Steam the previous week, every game that's launched on Switch, both of which you can get access to and self-publish on. Every week, 200 to 250 games launch on Steam, and 100 to 150 launch on Switch. So if you don't understand the fundamentals of how to get this to market, how to do QA, how to do localization, all of the stuff that's hidden behind the scenes, yes, you need a publisher. If you're doing a mobile game and you're doing free-to-play, I don't care how many you publish, unless you have a gigantic bank wad of investors behind you, yes, you have to have a publisher because you have to do user acquisition, and that's a whole different beast. If you've done this before, then yes, you can self-publish, but I do not recommend it if you're new to the industry. Or even if you've been in the industry for 10 years, but you've never actually been a part of seeing a game get published. So when we're looking at prospecting, this is where we get into the whole, how do I find the right publisher, or how do I find the right partner? Say you need 3D art assets done. Prospecting is how you're going to find it. It's just like you're going and digging for gold, just like the other kind of prospecting. You're basically going to do a whole lot of manual labor, and you're going to hope you find this little chunk of really good stuff. So where do you do that? There's industry guides. There are newsletters. I get about 5 or 6 newsletters a week. I don't try to overload with it, but it's good for keeping up with trends in the industry, news in the industry, that sort of stuff. Web news, mailing list, grunt work, my personal favorite. That means just sitting down and doing research. 90% of this stuff you can find online. So the industry guides, now that we're slowly getting back into the real world, the meat space conferences like we're at now, the German government is the prime example of this. At every conference that you go to, GDC, well, I would say E3, but that doesn't exist anymore. Gamescom out in Germany, all the big conferences where there are trade associations, the German government shows up every single year with a book about that thick of every game industry related company in Germany, what they do, contact info, emails. It is the absolute yellow pages of game development in Germany. That's where you want to be able to curate this stuff. You want to be able to build a database of people in the industry that you can find. Now, I will get you started really, really, really easily. At the end of this, there is a slide that has my contact information. You can go to powellgroupconsulting.com. You can go to IndieGameBusiness, which is our podcast and the whole education side. There is a link that will pop up when you get there that says, do you want our list of 650 publishers? We put out a list every year. We update it quietly throughout the year of every publisher in the industry. What company name, website, what platforms they publish on. You can download it, it's 100% free. The only thing I'm going to rope you into is you'll be on our newsletter, but if you don't like it, you can just opt out of that too. It's all fun and games. As you're going this is what you want to do. You want to build an understanding of the companies that are out there that can help you, put them into, it can be as simple as a spreadsheet, it can be as complex as a CRM solution. Don't go Salesforce, it's not that big CRM, but there are a lot of very affordable ones you can do. But you want to be able to put all of this place into somewhere where you can find it. And whether that's news on the web, I swear every 2 weeks there's a new publisher popping up. There's always new outsourcing companies come up. We just launched a site called GameSentinel.online. That is an online place where developers and publishers and service companies can go post information about their company and then actually request reviews from people they've worked with. So if you find this company, they're not complete crooks. Somebody has actually worked with them in the past. But the very starting point of biz dev in games industry is prospecting for companies that you may need to work with down the road. So you've got your prospecting, you know roughly who you need to talk to. If you're a service company, you're going to be writing proposals. If you're a developer, you're still going to be writing proposals. We just call them pitch decks. Same premise, different name. And they are blah, blah, blah words and numbers. But they are very important blah, blah, blah words and numbers. This is where you need to hit these 6 points whenever you're doing a proposal, even when you're doing a pitch deck. And on our Discord, every single week, Kimberly Rodatos, who is from the area, you may know her, she sits down every week on our Discord and does a pitch deck review session with people. You can come in, bring your pitch deck, she will go through it and tell you what's working and what doesn't work and give you feedback, or you can just show up and watch as she goes through these other ones. Kimberly's been doing this for a very long time. She works with Epic on the game store, so she has a bit of an understanding of what works and what doesn't work. But it will help you do all of this as well. So first and foremost, you need to show that you understand the problem. And if you are a service company, I run a consulting firm. We write proposals every single day. But We've written enough of them that we also have formats that we use over and over. Because at the end, that 6th point is extremely important. Save everything that you do either as a template or so you can go back and find it later on and go, oh, wait. This company needs something very similar to that thing that we did last year for that other company. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I can modify the work I've already done. It makes it a whole lot easier. So show that you understand the problem. If it's a service work, you want to show that you understand what they need and then go into how you're going to solve it. The same goes true for a pitch deck. Understand the problem. There is a hole in the market for this type of game. We are creating it. This is why it's going to be different. Go into what you will deliver. Exactly. Be very, very clear. When we do our proposals on the consulting side, we literally use the deliverable section of the proposal as the deliverable section of the contract. So there's nothing lost in the middle of all this. What are you going to deliver? How much are you going to charge them? And then tell them why you're awesome. Impostor syndrome is a very real thing in the industry. It's one of those things that even I, to this day, people call us up and say, we need your help on this. And I look around and go, why are they calling us? This is a much bigger company than we are. Don't they know this? Not always. This is a very specialized industry as well. On the indie side, you get the beauty of working in small companies and seeing all these different aspects of game development. When you start working in the bigger and bigger companies, you're looking at very finite parts of game development and game publishing. So one, they may very well not know what's going on. But when you go in and explain what you're going to do, why your game is going to be different, what makes it stand out from everything else, that is what is absolutely important in these proposals. But then, yes, it's easy to say, it's not easy to do, but get past the imposter syndrome. My mental thing in life and in the industry in general is, no matter what I get hit with, I take a step back and I was like, I'm not the only person who's ever had to figure this out before. And chances are there were a lot of people that weren't nearly as knowledgeable as I am about my little tightly focused section of the industry. I can figure this out. Be confident. And if you're making it up, be confident in making it up. It is absolutely, I don't read, I'm the business guy that doesn't read a whole lot of business books. But to this day, Richard Branson has like one of the best quotes, and to paraphrase, it basically says, if you're offered an opportunity and you don't know how to do it, take it, figure it out, as you go along. And a lot of that is true in the industry. As long as you know that you can come to a solution and you're confident in what you say, you're going to be fine. We're not going out and rewriting rocket science every single day. A lot of these companies will come to you or they'll look at your game because they generally don't understand what that problem is going to be. But if you can show that you do, and it's not complete malarkey, whatever you put in that proposal and deck, it's going to benefit you in the end. So be confident. Don't ever apologize for your deck. That's one of the things that absolutely gets me whenever developers pitch to me. They'll pop up the deck and they'll go, okay, so I'm sorry about the art. No, don't do that. You are proud of whatever crappy 4-polygon body that you put in there. This is what you do and this is why you love it. So anyway, show whoever it is you're pitching to that you understand what's going on, that you're going to be able to solve it. This is how you're going to solve it. This is how much you're going to charge them to solve it. And then point them to other people and say, look, I solved it for these people, or I've done it for this company, and we'll get to that part later. But always be confident. Even if you're not, still be confident. So project management. And when I rate like the underrated people in the industry right below the business people, because I am a tiny bit biased in that, your producers and your project managers are the next ones in line. And it absolutely infuriates me when I see gamers go, oh, well, you're the producer, so you're not really a game developer? It's like, no, they're not. They're just the ones that make sure that that game actually got to market. That's basically what they do. Always have a good producer or project manager on your game. It's going to help you in the end no matter what, because you can't keep track of everything. But as the business person, and assuming you're the business person and just the business person, and then you're not the business person slash coder or slash designer, which a lot of you are going to be. That's just the reality of the industry. You need to have a very high level understanding of how to manage these projects, how to keep things on track. Make sure that you've got the right people on the right job. And there's always this whole back and forth on, do you hire for culture or do you hire for skill sets? The reality is you do both. Because if you have somebody that's really, really skilled, but they cause drama with everybody else in the office, virtual or in real space, you're gonna have a problem. If you hire somebody that is just the best friend of everybody on the team, but they have no idea what they're doing, that's gonna be a problem as well. So make sure you have the right people on the right job, and a lot of that is gonna come just through time and working with people. The agency that I worked at for 10 years, 7 or 8 years into that company, we transitioned it into a casual game publisher. And to this day, it's like a running joke, and it's still how a lot of friends of mine got into the industry. We would hire testers by going to GameStop and seeing which people behind the counter, really knew what they were talking about, and then we're like, oh, okay, yeah, come in and do evaluations for us and test. And it literally got so bad at the GameStop in Chapel Hill that the manager looked at us one day when we went in. He goes, "You've literally hired my entire staff. Why don't you hire me?" And we were like, all right. We hired him. He's still in the industry to this day. That was 15 years ago. We would bring them in as testers, and then because there was no training at all, some project comes in, we need a producer, and we look at basically the evaluators, the testers who wrote the best documents, and we were like, congratulations, you're a producer. All right, let's go and move on from here. You're gonna find out who is good at things just by working with them. It's not necessarily about the resume and what's on there. That helps, but it's also working with people and understanding, seeing people even at other companies or in other disciplines, and you go, you know what? I have a friend of mine who's not from the game industry at all, and he's looking to change up, and I'm like, okay, I can't advise you on which coding languages to learn. I have no idea, but I can tell you, you've run your own company for 20 years, and you kept it in business. You do know project management, whether you have a PMP degree or not. You can be a producer. You need to be able to understand at a glance what's going on. And that could be reports from your producer. That could be a simple, 20-minute stand-up once a week. We have meetings, my entire staff is remote. We have meetings every Tuesday morning. They take 20 minutes, 30 minutes if we're just like talking about stuff. But it gives me an understanding of everything that's going on. But you have to be able to trust your people. You cannot do everything. That's the lessons that I learned the hard way when I first started the consulting firm. And if you don't trust your people, and if you don't, and you can't train them to the point that you do trust them, you're gonna have a problem. You just have to get past it. So understand at a glance what's going on. That will help you with these preemptive strikes on problems. If you're looking at something and you're working with a publisher and your game is single player only, and you look and say everything that they do is multiplayer, preemptively, you need to be ready for the just add multiplayer conversation that is inevitably coming to your talk. Make sure nothing falls through the cracks and get the job done like you said you would. 25 years, and the toughest phone call I ever had to make was when we were doing contract work. We were overseeing development of a project for a publisher. The producer that we had at the time was basically rubber stamping builds as they came in, wasn't looking at them, wasn't seeing what they had in there. We sent the GM candidate over to the publisher, and I got an email that said, Jay, where's the multiplayer option? And I'm like, what do you mean, where's the multiplayer option? He's like, there's no multiplayer option in this. And I'm like, okay, where did it go? Where did my deck go? There we go. That's the next slide, we'll get there in a second. I had to sit there and explain to that publisher that, the game that I promised them I would deliver when I was, doing the contract wasn't going to happen because we weren't keeping accurate tabs on the producer that we had. At some point, the developer had told the producer that, okay, multiplayer is not going to happen. And they just went, okay. Didn't tell the client, didn't tell any of us in the office, just moved right along. And it's a very difficult, going back to the part where I said everybody in this industry knows you, everybody knows everybody else, having to suck that up and tell a publisher, yeah, that thing I told you we were gonna do ain't gonna happen. So we need to figure out next steps. That's what you always want to avoid. It's why you don't need to micromanage everything in your business, but you do need to have a good idea of what's going on so you can preemptively solve these problems. All right, so I'm going to double check to make sure that we did not skip a couple. Nope, we didn't. We're good to go. All right. So, you've written your proposals, you got the contract, you've done what you said you were going to do to the best of your ability, because this is games, let's face it. Things tend to get slid in there, things tend to get, pulled out and missed, but communication is key in all of this. Getting paid. So this goes into, the contract negotiation side of everything. Always make sure your payments are tied to the specific milestones or dates, and that you have a very clear acceptance procedure in there. Because one of the biggest things that we see developers do is they send the contract says, we're going to send this over, you're going to have 30 days to look at it. If you find a problem, there's 30 days to fix it, and then the milestones do. Well, congratulations, you're now getting paid, best case, 2 months after you submitted that thing in. So you need to make 100% sure when you're doing these contracts that nothing is skipped, that you have very clear deliverables, very clear milestone payments in there. Give the client the info they need to pay you. Sounds very basic, it is not. Put your bank information on the invoice. I had a client just last night send me an email, can you confirm that this is the bank information? And in my head, I'm like, if it was what was written on the invoice that you obviously looked at, then yes, it's the bank information. But I went back and checked it anyway, just to be sure. Make sure that they have what they need to pay you, because otherwise, especially if you start working with bigger and bigger companies, they do payroll or they do payments like once a month. And if something goes sideways and they can't pay you on the 15th of March, you're not gonna get paid on the 20th of March, you're gonna get paid on the 15th of April. So make sure there's absolutely no question how to actually get your money. Forecast your revenue so you can see what's coming up. Forecasting revenue in game development is not an art or a science. It's somewhere in between that and like astrology. There's where it falls. But you need to be able to forecast it to your best extent possible. At least understand what your burn rate is. It's like how much, if nobody comes into the studio, how much are we paying out every month in software licenses, salaries, contractors, rent if you haven't, all that sort of stuff. And then do your best to make sure that that money coming in number is bigger than the money going out number. But be able to forecast it to the best of your knowledge, track your payment status, know who hasn't paid you, because with everything that you do, you're going to forget until it's like 2 days before payroll, and then you're like, oh my God, they didn't pay us and we can't make payroll. Understand who's paid you and who hasn't, and do not be afraid to go even to the biggest publisher in the world and go, where's my money? We said, and we did what we said we were gonna do, you need to pay us. Because 100% of the time, the squeaky wheel is the one that gets the money. And if you just kind of like let it go, then you're gonna be at the bottom of the list. If you're sitting there and not being rude and belligerent, being very firm about, look, we did our job. Where's our money? You're gonna get paid before the next team does. Understand your expenses, pay your contractors. This one has a big exclamation mark because this is the one that's most important. You wanna know what will sink your company quicker than anything else? Don't pay your people in the world of social media, because it's gonna come out and Kotaku and Polygon are gonna write articles about it, and it's not only that you're a horrible place to work, but you're a horrible place to work, and you don't pay your people. It will absolutely do irreversible damage to your brand. If you do nothing else on this list, make sure your people are getting paid and be upfront with them. Like, my company's been around 12 years now. Everybody, are we good on money? We got 3 months. Whether we usually, hopefully, we usually have more, But in this industry, if you can know that you have 3 months of revenue coming in and you've got enough to cover payroll for 3 months, you are ahead of about 80% of the companies in this industry. Because that gives you enough time to be able to say, all right, look, and you know, I've had these conversations with staff before. We've had like low points. And it's like, look, we got money coming in right now, but we're gonna have to do something because we ain't gonna have money coming in June. And you work through it and you're honest about it. Do not be that person that waits until, you know, the Friday payroll is due and then call everybody in and go, oh yeah, so nobody's getting checks today because we ain't got paid. Be upfront with your team. If you have cash flow problems, you may lose somebody. That's reality. That's just the way the industry is. But you're going to be a lot better losing somebody than you are having the entire industry troll you on the internet because you just laid off your whole team and didn't tell anybody it was coming. All right, we're doing good. All right, endorsements. Did you deliver what you promised? Did they see value in what you do? You may have to show your work. It's like my 10-year-old was sitting in the back of the room a minute ago, but apparently I bored him to the point that, you know, he and my wife stepped out. I also blame the Zelda custom controllers on the show floor for that, but that's beside the point. It's like his math homework. You got to show what you did. You got to be able to show that you did this, because here's the thing, nobody else is. You look at all of these games that come out, all of these companies that are in our industry working with Unreal that are on the movie side, they have to be the ones that say, hey, we did that work. Now, you may need to get permission from the publisher or from the contractor or whoever to be able to say it publicly, put it on your website. But in conversations, you have to be the one supporting yourself and endorsing yourself, because nobody else is going to do it. Nobody else cares. That's your problem. Make sure that you can show what you did and that you have permission to show it publicly, but show your work. Ask what's the worst that can happen. This is my favorite thing. You go to somebody and you've done work, and you say, hey, look, this went well. What, can you give us an endorsement on LinkedIn or something we can put on the website or in a pitch deck or whatever? The worst they can say is no. And trust me, if you do the business out of this industry for a long time, you're going to get used to the word no. It's just part of the world. But they're not going to blow up at you, never agree to do work with you and you know, badmouth you in the industry because you asked them to write a comment on the work that you did. Worst they can say is no. And as long as you did your work, now, if you completely screwed up the contract and you didn't deliver anything, you said, you probably don't want to do that. But if you did your job, get it. Get the endorsement out there, you know, because people need to understand that you're a reputable company. There are, I mean, look at the audio side of the industry. I bet you I get an email a week from somebody that is looking for audio work. You know, they're a freelancer, they do music, they do sound design. There are so many of them out there that if you don't stand out from the crowd by saying, hey, look, I did audio on this game, on this project, even if you did the audio on a game jam project in Colombia, South America, put it on there, because that gives you credibility. People can look at it and go, oh, they actually did do this. This is not bad. But make sure that, you know, you get that endorsement out there as well that says, hey, look, they did this for us. And then ask for referrals. You know, when you finish a contract with somebody, if it all went well, you say, hey, look, do you know anybody else that could use our help? In my line of work, where we help a lot of developers, all the time. It's like, hey, look, you know, we helped you get set up to find a publisher. We helped you find a publisher. Do you know anybody else? Well, yes. All of you in here on the development side, no other development teams. It's the same goes true with any sort of contracting work, any sort of outsourcing work, finding publishers, whatever. Always ask to say, hey, look, do you know anybody else that could use our help? And go from there. It's okay to brag about the work you've done. Yes. All right, so here's the more resources page. And we're going to do Q&A too. Happy to do Q&A. That's my company site. If you go to the other list, that just do company site / publisher list, that's where you can download it. IndieGameBusiness is my side project, a hobby that grew completely out of control. We've got a podcast that we do digital events. We have a Discord of over 4,000 people in the industry, all of them from interested in the business side, whether they're coming straight into the industry from somewhere else, or, you know, we've got executives from Sony and Sega and Microsoft on there as well. It is the safest place in the world to go and ask questions, no matter how dumb you think that question is. I can guarantee you those other people on that side who didn't have the nerve to ask. But the thing is, when you ask, really experienced people are going to come in and say, okay, this is the answer to your question, or this is what factors into it. And the big running joke is always that when they ask me these questions, it's like, so what's a good publishing offer? It depends. And that's the whole linchpin of business in this industry. No matter what you say, no matter what you want to do, the answer is always going to be, it depends. As a developer, what's the best publishing offer? Quite frankly, the one you can get a lot of times. But there's a lot of factors in there that we can go into, but it's always going to come down to, it just depends on your current situation, what else is going on, and the market in general. So, think of questions real quick. I'm going to make sure that I didn't skip a slide in here one more time. But I think we are good. Yeah, we got it. All right, so with all of that, any questions? Yes.
So what can I do for these busy industry people? Is this get some personal time and talk about what I can do, what needs to be done, and get this information that they have to their experience?
So what type of people are you looking at?
I'm trying to start a studio right now. I'm a programmer. I work on indie stuff. I like to get my own studio going, but I need experience. I have workers. I need stuff that I can show other people. You know, I want to build my reputation.
So first off, yes, you're right. You have to get the team. And your best opportunity, especially here in the middle of North Carolina, is look around you. You know, are you coming out of school or you been in the?
I'm a student right now.
Okay.
But I've been working with this stuff for a long time.
So obviously, other students, other folks that you know, there are now that we're getting back to somewhat of real events, there's a couple of meetups that always go in Raleigh. I used to live here. I migrated to the mountains a long time ago. The other thing I would recommend is always game jams. And so you've got your project you're working on, and that's perfectly fine. But when it comes to meeting new possible team members somewhere, look at game jams. Because one, they're digital now, and there's one happening like every week somewhere. And so you can meet new artists, you can meet new sound folks, that sort of stuff. Discord is a wonderful place to network. It's just simply a matter of that prospecting side that we talked about. Find the areas that have these types of people, get to know them. The one thing I would warn you of, don't jump into a completely long-term, full-blown project with somebody that you haven't worked with in some way, shape, or form yet. And always, always, always have agreements for your contractors, for your team members. There's multiple lawyers in the industry who actually have like kits that you can get. You need to make sure, that's the unspoken. We don't go into the legal side of running the business in this talk, but you do need to make sure that everything you have has a document behind it. No matter how simple it is, no matter how complex it is, have a document, let a lawyer look at it. But in terms of meeting people, quick projects. Put together something, work on it for either a weekend or a week on a game jam, or do a short itch.io project for a month. Use that as your interviewing process, basically. It's not only going to let you meet all these people, but at the end of it, assuming the game gets finished, you're going to have something else that you can show to publishers, because the number one question a publisher wants to know isn't how much this is going to cost, or is this going to be marketable. It's, is this game actually going to get finished? Because if you can't convince them of that, the revenue projections don't matter. So having these little shorter projects put together is going to give you fuel for that fire, and you're going to get to be able to meet people to be potential teammates as well. Yes, what's next? Yes.
If you know you want to do project management and want to be on the production side, how would you recommend someone who doesn't have industry experience?
Excellent question, because I literally just promoted one of my sales outreach people to project manager producer this week. There is a wonderful Discord run by my friend Junie out of She is over at Paradox now. Bear with me. I don't have it up. It's under, you can look for the production and management Discord. I don't have it offhand. If you go to our Discord, there's a link to it. Junie runs a Discord of about 3,000 people who are nothing but project managers and producers across the industry. She is to the production side of the Discord what we are on the business side. And so there are classes and online courses that you can take, but the reality of production is you need to know games, you need to play a lot of games, you need to understand, which is, the students love when I say that, the parents, when I'm talking to the high school, don't love when I say that, but you need to understand all kinds of games, but you also need to be organized. And if you can do those two, you're good. But as far as an intro to starter, go to Junie's Discord and you can ask questions. There are sessions that they do. She has hot tea or warm beverage talks. So, whether you drink your coffee or your tea, wonderful resources on that one that'll get you started. And you'll be one of the blessed people in the industry because you are a game dev. You're the one making sure that these things actually make it to market with features. So yes, go do that. Wait, hold on. There was somebody, yes.
So if you're publishing your own game, how do you go about transitioning from publishing like stuff about that game from your personal socials to more of like a business side social? Like, what's the easiest transition to that? Is it to reach out to your community and say, hey, I'm going to be posting a lot more of my game development stuff on this, or is it the kind of thing where you have to consistently like market use that business side more than your personal side?
All right, I'm old and I caught most of that.
Okay,
But let me see if I got it right though.
Okay.
You're working on a project. How do you go from posting about it personally because it's kind of like a pet project to, okay, I'm going to do this for real and make money from it and start building traction on the commercial side?
Yeah.
I've done this once or twice. Community. And this is one of the things, so one of the questions that we get a lot is, okay, I'm working on a game, when do I start showing it to publishers? Or in your case, God bless you, trust me, look for a publisher unless you've done this before. I know everybody wants to self-publish because Eric Barone did it with Stardew, but bless you, you ain't Stardew. I don't even know your project and I can tell you ain't Stardew. What you want to be doing from day one is community building because that's what's going to do a ton of the base work for you down the road. We always tell developers that once you have a screenshot, you can start building a community. Once you've got a playable demo, that's when you start talking to publishers. But by building that community early on social media, on Discords, on Itch, wherever you can go to talk about it, that community is then going to help you build, traction later on. If you're going to self-publish, that's your market right there. And if you decide to go for a publisher, the industry split right now, with publishers, about half of them are okay seeing things that are already on early access. About half of them don't want to see any games been announced anywhere ever. There's no way getting around that. You're going to lose half your market one way or another. But the publishers that always like to ask, okay, they are okay with early access games or games that have already been announced somewhere. We send them the game they look at. The first question they already ask us, how many wish lists does it have? How many people on their Discord? How big is their social media following? So the messaging doesn't really change. What you're talking about your game, what you're passionate about, the selling points, that's going to stay the same. You just need to do it to a bigger audience. And then you need to point that audience back somewhere where you've got their attention, either to an email newsletter, because as odd as it is, email is still like the way to get customers. There's a reason why, I get that email from Steam that's like, hey, summer sales launched, 97 games on your wish list are on sale. And I'm like, oh shit, here we go again. But, this is gonna cost me a mortgage. That is still like the way to get people's attention. The other one is Discord. You just need to make sure that everybody that's looking at whatever you're doing on social or Reddit or wherever, you're capturing that person somewhere. And then that's gonna be the basis of doing what's next. So, yes?
So as a producer, what kinds of interactions do you usually have on the marketing side with production?
So you're talking about with me having with the producers?
Yeah.
So a lot of it early on is, okay, convince me that this is going to be a marketable game when it's out. And so you can do that with a lot of different resources, VG Insight, Steam Spy, and don't, no, none of these things are 100% accurate on exactly how many copies these games have sold, but they're close enough for what you need. So one, show me that this is going to be a market. And one of the best slides I've ever had a developer do was they had literally a Venn diagram of 3 games and showed how theirs was in the middle. But do not put that pitch thing in there that says, we're doing an open world RPG and Zelda sold 20 million copies, so we're gonna sell 10 million copies. No, you're not. Find things that are more realistic on the indie side. But first and foremost, I wanna know that that producer knows what they put out at the end of the day is going to actually work. On a weekly basis, I wanna make sure that one, there is a process in, that there are sprints, however they're doing there. Don't ask me the difference between waterfall and agile and whatever else, because I haven't produced a game in 10 years, and I don't want to go back to doing it again because I wasn't good at it. Make sure that, I know that these things are on track. And when they get off track, because they will, nobody has ever sat down and said, I'm going to build this game, it's going to take 18 months, and we're starting today, and it's going to be ready on time. No. When it gets off track, just be able to tell me why it is and how it's going to get back on track. I'm not going to, I'm not going to micromanage my producer. If you tell me that this is going right or it's going wrong, and there's a plan in place to get it fixed, that's perfectly good for me. But on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, I just want to know that everything's tracking, because if ship dates start getting missed, then marketing is going to get screwed up. Communication is going to get screwed up. If we have a bigger, fan base that we're going to, my community managers are going to get yelled at. So as long as there's clear and concise communication that goes over, I don't want to sit down and go through a 10-page document every Monday morning, then we're good. But a lot of it just simply comes down to understanding the market, understanding where the game's going to fit in, and then being clear and honest with everybody, through the process every week on schedule and all that kind of good stuff. All right, I know your arms get tired.
So, I'm satisfied with what we're doing. I build it up, I'm happy with the amount of people and that stuff. I have communication. How do I leverage that into something that's good for me, good for them?
Encourage them to spread the word. Be very careful about doing, a lot of people use Gleam competitions for community building. Gleam.io, it's a site that lets you do all sorts of things that credits people for pointing to certain whatever. The one thing you want to be careful of is that you're not incentivizing people for the wrong reason to come to your server or to come to your community. If you're trying to build your community and you say, hey, look, we're going to give away a PS5, then you're going to get a huge amount of people in your community that don't give a crap about your game. They just want the PS5. So you want to be able to, one, make sure you've got the right people in there, but then empower them to help you spread the word. Hey, look, here's a screenshot. Here, we're going to do a Q&A on this. We're going to do an AMA. Get them to help spread out the word, and that's how you leverage them to grow, and then you can sell to them and all that kind of good stuff too. All right, wait, hold on. Let me go, and then come back. Yes. Was that a yawn or was that a hand? Okay. Stretch. Behind you, Norma. Yeah. Was it a question? It was a stretch. Ah, all right. Okay. Yes.
I'm sorry, I think we miscommunicated there.
Oh, okay, sorry. Like I said, I'm
I'm
old.
happy with my marketing right now. I'm happy with my growth and all that. What I'm saying is, now that I found a community, what's next? Other than just growing the community, what can I do to say, hey, look at this, I have this community. What can that do for me?
Okay, so all right, you're right. I did only hear about half of that. It's okay. So you've got the community. God, this is always like the tough part. A lot of people are going to say, run a Kickstarter. If you need funding, run a Kickstarter. So Anya Combs, who used to be the director of games at Kickstarter, she left a couple of weeks ago. She's done countless Q&A. I can always count on Anya for our talks, and I'm like, hey, come do an AMA. The thing, if you're thinking about doing a Kickstarter or any kind of fundraiser like crowdfunding, you need to realize that 70 to 80% of the money that you raise in that is going to come from your existing community. So it's not a situation where I'm going to run a Kickstarter and find a whole bunch of people that are going to love my game. No, you're going to find about 20% of your audience that are new and love it. So If you need funding, you can do a Kickstarter. I know developers who do Patreons, but they're quite frankly not that successful. They don't turn a churn of money like that. It really depends on what you need. If you need funding, then you want to get them to invest early in something. So maybe that means you go early access with the game and try to get them to buy in early. But you have to keep in mind that wish lists get old quick. So obviously, if they buy it on early access, one, you're losing a chunk of your potential publishing partners down the road because they're like, you already launched the game. But two, if you, at the bare minimum, you want to get wish list, but if somebody wish lists something and the game doesn't come out for a year and a half, then they're not going to remember that wish list. That's why my emails from Steam say I have 75 games I'm going to save a bunch of money on. I don't remember most of those games because they were out so long, or I signed up for them a long time ago. But this is one of those classic, it depends. It depends on what you need. So funding is one thing. Even if you're going out looking for a publisher, if you can get that community to talk about your game, that is a gigantic benefit, because then you know, open up the possibility that one streamer, some person's going to stream it, and then another streamer's going to see it, and then all of a sudden you're like in Among Us range where 2 years later everybody discovers this game and now it's a multi-billion-dollar franchise. Figure out what you actually need from your community and then focus in that strength. But don't go out and think that, you know, if it's on the money side, that it's going to be solved with a Kickstarter, because those are very, very, very rare cases. But yeah, I mean, chances are you either need marketing or you need money. So get them to talk about it, and then if you can leverage that in some way, shape, or form, you're good to go. But even if they're just talking about it on Twitter, you know, we scout for 4 different publishers and an investment firm, and I know the other companies that scout, the people that scout, we're always on Twitter. You see something on like a Wishlist Wednesday, Screenshot Saturday's gotten a little flooded, but Wishlist Wednesdays when we look at all the time. You see a game, reach out to the developer, say, hey, what's up? What's going on? All right, what time? 5 minutes left. All right, any other questions? Yes.
So I had a question about kind of like your proposal section. So say you do your prospects, you find a publisher. How do you start off approaching with a proposal? Is it just start off by saying we have the solution to your problem, or is there like a certain like way to go about it?
It depends. So different publishers approach this stuff in different ways. Some of them are completely ready on Twitter. You send them a note. When you get our publisher list, it's going to show you websites to go to. First and foremost, if that publisher has a submit your game here button on their webpage, do that first. You can go directly to the CEO and say, hey, look, we want to pitch our game. And they're going to go and put it through because what that's doing is, I mean, we even have it on our stuff. It puts it into a backend, so it's into a system, and they know they're going to lose it. Now, you do that, and then you call your friend or whoever you know over there and go, hey, FYI, I just dropped the game in your submit folder. So it's in there. But publishers want to find games if they're looking for stuff. Now, let me clear the one big gigantic cloud that's going to be in this room. Every single one of you who's doing an indie game has their eyes focused on one publisher. Devolver is not going to publish everybody's game. I see this every conference. It's like, no, we're good. We're going to find a publisher. We really want to work with Devolver. You and about 4,000 other companies too. One, the reason we do that list is so you understand your options. And you understand there's more than 15 companies you can go to. But every single one of them, if they have a slot in their publishing calendar, they want to see your game. Now they may look at it and go, this is not what we want, but they still want to see it. So you can go to their webpage, if they've got that, you know, submit your game there, do that. Look on LinkedIn. I know LinkedIn is like this whole thing. This is where you find a job. It's also where you find the right people to talk to at all these companies, because you put in the company and then you go look for the C-level people, or you look for the business development people, or you look for the scout, or in worst case scenario, you go down and you look for the producers, because the producers know how to get the games in there as well, and you reach out to them and you say, here's what we've got. So it can be any number of different ways. We generally do it when we're working with developers. We generally do it on email. You know, we email people, say, hey, look, this is the game we've got. This is what's coming up. But one of the underrated aspects of it is Discord. Any publisher worth their salt has a Discord server. And you can go to that Discord server, and you look up at the top on the right, and where it's got the admins or the people that are important, see if one of those names matches up to one of the names that you found on LinkedIn as far as the decision maker, and go to them. And if nothing else, go to the community manager that's on that Discord and say, hey, look, we've got a game and we want y'all to like look at it. Who do I talk to? People in this industry are generally very, very friendly. They will point you in the right direction. The people that aren't tend to get shuffled out of the industry pretty quickly, because we all do this because we love it. We do not do this to get rich, because we can all make more money doing something else in a different industry. But people like me stick around for 25 years, somewhat out of spite, but two, because we do love what we do. So there's multiple ways. That's why I said it depends, but start with those little points right there. All right, any other questions before I let everybody go to lunch? All right, awesome. I've got cards if y'all have questions. Email me.